Gunnar, Esiason, and you are listening to Breathe In, a Cystic Fibrosis podcast presented by the Boomer Esiason Foundation and GunnarEsiason.com. This podcast series has been made possible by Vertex, Novartis, DCU, and Atlantic Health. The views expressed on Breathe In, a Cystic Fibrosis podcast are that of Gunnar Esiason, Leah Ferrone, Tiffany Rich, and guests, and are not necessarily those of the Boomer Esiason Foundation. Nothing in this podcast series should be considered medical advice. Such advice can only be given by a physician who's experienced with cystic fibrosis. The Boomer Esiason Foundation, Gunnar Esiason, Leah Ferrone, Tiffany Rich, and guests cannot be held responsible for any damage which may result from using the information on this podcast without the permission of your medical doctor. You're listening to Breathe In, a Cystic Fibrosis podcast.
Hi everyone, it's Leah Ferrone, and I'm joined with my lovely co-hosts, Gunnar Esiason and Tiffany Rich, as always.
Hello.
Today we are going to talk about CF friendships. Since Gunnar wrote a blog on this earlier this week, I read it, Tiff read it. Now we know Gunnar actually likes us, because before that we were questioning it.
I was questioning it. I didn't know.
But Tiff, do you want to start us off this week on your CF friendships and what they've meant to you?
I feel like I've built a lot of friendships over the past couple of years since I did that whole Taylor Swift thing. A lot of sisters in fibros, if we want to go punning, have followed me, and I follow them back, and I just see their stories, and you communicate through the social media since we can't be together in the same building, or 6 feet apart.
Yeah, because of the cross-infection. So, for those who may not know what cross-infection is, obvious, it's not obvious, but cross-infection is something that we deal with in cystic fibrosis since we're harboring bacteria in our lungs, and we can, in theory, or I guess in reality, we can give each other different bacterial infections based on close proximity and contact.
Yeah, so that's bad. We don't want to give each other germs.
Bad. No.
Because we don't need more germs than we have.
I already have enough. Don't really want either of yours. Sorry.
No, it's cool. Actually, I don't think I have any in my lungs.
You don't. You're germ-free now.
Yes. Yeah, just the sinuses and
post-transplant.
But hey, post-transplant life.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've built a lot of friendships, and it's been really awesome to, especially pre-transplant when I was going through so much. I got to talk to others that went through transplant or were pre-transplant, and it helped kind of get the information that I needed, or, just having someone there. And Leah helped me so much through that process.
Yeah, well, you two are the ultimate CF friends, obviously creating a brand out of your friendship.
Yeah, essentially. That wasn't our goal of becoming friends. I mean, we became friends naturally.
Yeah.
But that just kind of
I'm going to create a brand with you. Let's become friends.
Right. Okay, that's why I reached out. That's actually why I slid into both of your DMs, because
just create brands.
I was trying to create a brand,
Yeah,
Expand the brand.
But just being able to have her to vent to,
that helps a lot.
Say, because she knew what I was going through. Mm-hmm. When you have someone that knows what you're going through, it's so much easier to just breathe in a way. Just say,
No, that's true.
But it is true.
It's hard. It's hard going through all of those scary situations, and not having people physically there in your life that know how you feel. I mean, I think a lot of my friends and my family, they try to put themselves in my shoes as much as they can and try to relate to me, but they're never really going to know how I actually feel. And there's a lot of things I hide from them, I keep a lot of it to myself. I might have coughed up blood this morning, but am I going to go tell everyone that I'm friends with? No. I might be having a bad lung day, but am I going to tell all my friends that, or my family that? No. It's just, you kind of get used to going about your life and keeping it to yourself and trying to, I guess, be the bigger person in a sense. It just becomes part of your routine, or at least it's became part of mine,
Yeah.
So having someone there that understands how I feel it helped me a lot. I didn't know I needed it.
You can't harbor those feelings.
Right.
You're definitely right. I think there's definitely things that I probably, let's put it this way, you're not going to share every single intimate detail about your life with your disease with somebody that doesn't know what you're really talking about because they don't live with it themselves. I think it's, you're not going to, you don't want to have to sit there and explain what it feels like to, burst a plug or like, pop through, just some inflammation in your lungs or something like that. It's not, those are like, I guess, different little things that are very hard to articulate to somebody who has not gone through it. I mean, I know I have a hard time articulating some of my own symptoms to my doctor because I know my doctor doesn't know what it totally feels like to have blocked airways. It's a very weird thing to talk about with somebody who's never gone through it. And I think that having friends with, other people that know what you're going through, other people with CF in your life that know what you're going through it's a very helpful thing. And really it's a very new thing because of the advent of social media. I mean, back in the old days, there were the CF camps and things like that, but
Did either of you ever do any of them?
No. I'm too young for that.
Okay. I didn't think so because I never did one. I remember hearing about them a little bit in clinic when I was really little.
Yeah,
but I was too little to really take part in them.
Well, you two like the old women here. I'm the young gun.
I was the ultimate old woman for Halloween. So
yes, you were.
Yes,
you were.
That was amazing.
Me only going to a party for an hour and then piecing out.
Yeah,
it was pretty fit.
Yeah, the CF life. No, I think like back on topic here. The new thing is the social media, right? That's how you connect with people, and now with Skype, like we're doing right now, and Snapchat and Instagram and all the things, you can actually see somebody and feel like you're talking to them in person.
Exactly.
Right. That's not something that people with CF had so many years ago, because as soon as they started to develop the cross-infection rules and the guidelines and stuff like that, the CF camps went away. Things became a lot more strict in clinic. When I go to CF clinic, it's like you see somebody else with CF in clinic, and you're trying to like X them out. Like stay away from me.
Yeah.
It's like the boogeyman.
I don't even sit down.
Neither do I.
I hide from them. They probably think I'm the weirdest person ever. Because people see me at clinic all the time, and I get messages after the fact, and they're like, "Oh, I saw you today," and I'm like, "Oh, you should have said hi," but was it really?
But at the same time, but you're really going to say hi to someone?
Because
yeah.
I was pacing.
I once was doing a PFT at the clinic, and I coughed. Right, I obviously coughed during a PFT, and someone slid into my DMs and goes, "Are you here doing a PFT right now?" And I'm like, "Who the hell are you? And how would you know that?" And she's like, "Oh, I listened to your podcast and I heard you cough on the podcast. And his cough coming out of the room next to me sounds a lot like your cough." I'm like, "What is going on right now?" It's like a Twilight Zone.
That's weird.
It was really weird. But it's awesome that we have listeners like that, right? So
it's true.
But it was really kind of a funny thing. And I was like, "Yeah, I am here." And she's like, then we started talking about the clinic visit and how each other were doing. And I always say that when you talk to somebody with CF for the first time, it's like all of a sudden you've known. Oh well, not all of a sudden, but it feels like you've known that person for 7 years,
so
or for 7 years into a decade. It feels like you've known that person for your entire life, right? It's all of a sudden you just jump into it and you're like, oh, that person has gone through everything that I've gone through, just in a different way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know, even when Tiff and I connected, I feel like it was like we gave each other the basics of our lives and kind of where we were at, and then it just felt like we knew each other for our whole lives,
We were the same
I think
person.
a lot of it's true though. We kind of are for multiple things. Your obsession with Taylor is different than mine, but that's probably the only difference we have. But most of the people that I became friends with through social media that have CF, I feel like you instantly connect with them and you're on the same page and you feel like you've known them for a majority of your life, which is just a really cool thing.
And the other interesting part about this is that your non-CF friends also are people that don't have internet friends, right? If it's okay for us to have internet friends because those are other people with CF that we're talking to. It's a very weird thing to be there talking to somebody that you've never actually met. Like the three of us have never actually met in person, yet here we are talking about CF in very intimate ways. It's a very different thing to tell somebody about that. There's definitely a little bit of a taboo. You're talking to someone you don't know. You feel like you're gonna get catfished, but at the same time, you're creating these really deep, intimate relationships with people that you I guess, on the other end of the internet hope are telling the truth, because that's how relationships and stuff are formed. But it definitely is a very strong sense of release in the fact that there are people. I don't want to say it's like a different life, but there are people out there that you can reach out to really, share the burden with.
Right. And I think I realized how unique it was to have these like online friends that most people really don't have. When like my boyfriend was asking me like, oh, who are your best friends and things like that, and I was telling him about Tiff, and he was like, oh, well, like, where did you meet? Like, where did you physically meet? And I'm like, oh, we met on Instagram. And he was like, you know what I mean? But he didn't understand like the cross infection and things like that at that point. So then I explained all of that, and he's like, okay, this makes sense. So now all of my online friends, he's like, they're the same as my normal friends, but yeah, it's just
3,000 miles away.
It's definitely a very, it's interesting you bring it up with like your boyfriend, right? Because your significant other obviously wants to meet your friends and, sort of be involved in your life and things like that. So my girlfriend, as soon as she figured out that I had all these, CF friends and my internet friends or whatever, she feels like she probably wants to meet them and get to know them. And, to this point now, she now also talks to other people with CF on the internet, which is a really cool thing for her to do.
It is cool.
Because it's a way for her to learn about it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, now she kind of has internet friends also. It's because it's all like one, I know, like one big happy family, I guess, cliche, but it's, it's all encompassing of what parts of my life are.
Right.
Well, we love her.
Yeah, I love your girlfriend. She's absolutely awesome.
She claims
I think she's a good fit for you.
Okay, thanks. Yes. She claims to be the podcast's biggest fan. So I hope
I think she might be, honestly.
She loves to
she helps me decide what clips to share every week on the Instagram.
Oh my god. Okay, well,
just from what you tell me,
we're gonna move on from that.
Right. Okay. I think one question I have for both of you, just like from just seeing how this compares to me, but like, did you have CF friends growing up, or was it really like when it became a big thing on social media that you started having these types of friends?
I had friends. I still have them. They live around here. When we went to the Great Stride walks, I would see them all the time. And then when I was born and went to CF clinic, my mom met another CF mom, which is my friend. So we would be together a lot outside of clinic. And it was fine, I guess. We were both healthy, but at that point, I was 1989. It was back in the day, so I had friends back then. I'm a little old, but I had friends back then. And then now it's more like the 6 feet thing, all that stuff. I see people at the Great Stride walks, and we have to wear the shirt or something that shows that we have CF, so we don't do the cross contamination. So you can say hi to them and whatnot. We're just not close quarters.
Right. Right.
Yeah. It's definitely similar to Tiffany in the sense that. I've never actually been to a Great Strides walk. We never did the CFF thing growing up because we obviously have our own thing going on.
I know.
But so I never I've never experienced one of those things. But at our own events, we signal out the CF patients. We definitely and you have to ultimately label who is at an event, and we have to get away from getting away from labels. We can talk about that another day, but. In the confines of an event or a fundraiser, it's very important to single out who a CF patient is. And, at our events, I definitely, create relationships with people over the years just away from social media because, we have a person with CF on our Young Professionals board. I obviously work with Jared Cahill, so I do know patients that way. And then I also actually have family friends who, and within the family, there's 2 sisters who have CF. So I've known them in person, and when we are around each other in person, maximum precautions are always taken, especially at our events. We do stay away from each other as best as we can, and we always make sure that we have hand sanitizer. And when I'm around Jerry Cahill, because he's post-transplant, I'm always masked up, because I'm more of the risk to him than he is to me at that point. But, there are situations where, I am around CF patients just by the nature of my job, I guess, but I always do take maximum precautions, because what I always say, and you guys may or may not agree, is that, I know how I take care of myself. I don't know how someone else takes care of himself or herself. Right? Like, I can control my CF to an extent. I can't get out there and, just take for granted how well somebody may take care of themselves. They may say that they do a great job taking care of themselves. They may say they culture X, Y, or Z as far as bacteria goes, but I can't trust that person 110%, because ultimately their decisions in meeting each other will impact my life, in the sense that cross-infection is such a real significant issue in the CF world.
Yeah. It's kind of like risk or reward kind of thing. Like, what do you want to risk it and be close together, and risk your health, or
I mean, it's really the ultimate risk. And I always bring up this example, and it really pains me that it is the example, but it was like the Fault in Our Stars couple last year, right? Those two kids that met on the internet, they got married, and they ended up culturing this patient together, and it ended up, they needed to go through transplant, and they both unfortunately didn't make it. And that's the real danger of, I think, meeting someone on the internet and creating a deep personal relationship with it, because then all of a sudden you're going to start pushing out the rest of the world, right? That's like the negative side to having the CF friends, because, when you meet somebody who is living the exact same life that you are in a lot of ways, you're really quickly going to create a connection, right? You're going to create a connection so quickly, and it's going to be so deep, and it's going to be so great. But if it keeps going, you're going to start pushing away the rest of your friends, just I'm sure you guys have a really close friend who got a boyfriend one day, and then all of a sudden they left the friend group. Or in my case, I have a couple buddies that I was really close with for a long time. They get the girlfriend, and then you see them every once in a while. You don't see them as much as you used to. It's the same thing in CF. You get two people with CF that become really great friends on the internet, then all of a sudden they become each other's world, and that's a very dangerous thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because then you kind of get consumed in it, and I don't know, those cross infections are real. I know, growing up, I had some friends with CF, and it was only because, we went to school together, or we had other friends that, overlapped, and we all have the same infections at this point, because we were around each other without knowing that we couldn't be around each other, So there's definitely a risk there.
And the science is behind it, right? I know people feel differently about it, and the cross-infection thing is something, I don't know, people love to argue it, or just not believe in it, I guess, but for me, it's definitely something that's very real. My job depends on my ability to, be healthy and get out there and do things, and if somebody's gonna, and really my livelihood and my life just depends on those parts of my life, I can't take the risk in sort of just coming across another patient who I have no idea who takes care of himself. We actually had a situation like that at one of our events within the past couple of years. A patient showed up that we had no idea was going to be coming to the event, and she came up to me and introduced herself. She's hey, I'm so and so. I actually have CF, and I was like, who the hell are you? I didn't know you were going to be here. I have no idea who you are. It's nice to meet you, but I'm sorry, we can't be doing this right now.
Right.
It's a scary situation when you're like that. I think I never realized how many people around me actually have it until I was more connected on social media, and could see the different people in my state that had CF, and now I'm out all the time, and I'll see them from afar, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how many times did this actually happen prior to me realizing who has CF and who doesn't?
That's that's the other side of it, though. Right?
You can't live in a bubble either.
Exactly, you can't live in a bubble, but I think you can take precautions when you know what's going on. When you don't know what's going on, you gotta just be a vigilant person. But you don't take the risk when you know that there's a risk involved.
Yeah,
exactly.
I knew in my town growing up, no one else had CF. There was probably a couple towns over that had CF, so I was pretty protected during school.
The same way for me.
And everything. So That was good.
It was different for me because
Yeah, for Maryland, I feel like there's so many people with CF.
There's a lot, or at least we all tend to hang out at the same places.
Right?
Yeah.
That makes sense, right? Like you're concentrated around the hospital.
Bar. It's so weird. I went into a bar one weekend and I ran into 3 people with CF within like walking onto the first floor of it. And
That's
I was like,
unbelievable.
Okay, time to leave.
Yeah.
It was weird, but yeah, like growing up, the first school that I went to for preschool and elementary school, there was a girl there that actually had it. She was friends with my sister, and we were around each other, and it was totally cool. Like there wasn't a precaution for that. And then I changed schools and went to Catholic school, and there was a girl a year younger than me that had it there too.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
it was there. Every school I went to, there was someone, and then the high school I ended up going to. By that point, I knew most of the people in the area that had it, and we all kind of picked where we were going to go, and that was kind of our school. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which it's sad that you take ownership like that, but at that point we had learned the cross infection was too risky, and we didn't want to give anything to each other that the other people might not have. So.
Oh, that's pretty wild. That is an unbelievable little occurrence. I mean, not that I know of, at least. I've never really run into somebody with CF, like, unknowingly, other than the little anecdote I just told, but I've never really had that feeling before.
Mm-hmm. I have it a lot. Like, I was at Target 2 weeks ago. Saw somebody in the same aisle.
Casually at Target.
Gosh, I didn't know that other people with CF come to this Target. I might have to change Target.
Where's the hand sanitizer? Where's the mask?
And it's sad because I love all these people. They're such great people. I would love to hang out with them. I have so much in common with all of them, but you can't risk it, No. So
it's definitely the negative side of things, right? Like
it is. It's very hard.
I mean, it's hard to feel like you know somebody so well, but you can never like shake hands or hug that person, right? You can never like hug the person that, like, obviously, let's say like I'm going through a really bad day and I need a hug. Tiffany, I need that hug so bad. There it is, the virtual hug,
I'm sure
right?
our phones will do it soon.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, like, it's a very weird thing that has been created. Well, not really created, but just a weird thing that we have to live with.
Right.
I mean, and I think I didn't realize how painful it was until she went through transplant, because leading up to transplant, I mean, she was really sick, and I had been through periods of time where I was as sick as she was, but for how long she was that sick, it was hard to not be able to be there with her and just like have a chill day so she wasn't alone. You know what I mean?
Well, we FaceTimed, so that helped a lot.
Right. Like we would just have days where we would
the
just
technology
FaceTime all day
helps
long.
and things like that, for sure.
Right. But when she went through the actual transplant, I couldn't talk to her. You know what I mean? Like for the first week or two, I think I FaceTime with you after about a week. You couldn't really say much, but
I couldn't speak. I was just
it was
your mouth.
basically me talking the whole time after I had a meltdown and, whatever. But yeah, it was just interesting because that was the one time where I knew she needed me and I couldn't be there. And it was so hard to watch that from afar and want to help from afar, but not be able to do anything. It was just one of the weirdest feelings I've ever had, and it absolutely killed me.
You're absolutely right. Like it's funny to say that because, well, I guess it's not really funny, but looking today, actually, a friend of mine with CF called me and she was like, Gunnar, I haven't gotten, there's something as small as a PICC line. She's like, I haven't gotten a PICC line in however many years. And the last time I did it, she had a horrible experience, trying to find the vein or accessing her arm or whatever.
It's traumatic.
She's like, I'm having like a ton of anxiety about this. She's like, what should I do? And I was like, you just gotta have to go through it. And we talked it out for a little bit. And what I thought was gonna be a 30-second phone call of me giving some advice, all of a sudden turned into a 10-minute phone call of us exchanging PICC line stories. It was definitely a very freeing moment for her as well as it was for me. But like you said, we couldn't be there for each other in that moment. Obviously, she's not feeling well because she's going to get IVs done. But,
right.
You want to feel like you're there for that person. And similar to you FaceTiming intubated Tiffany, you can only, do so much at one time.
Right. And then just writing on the whiteboard.
Well, that whiteboard. Oh. That was my communication.
It really was.
At least I had that. It worked very well. But she made that video that you were in for me, and that helped so much. I was in tears, and that was the whole like the CF community coming together and supporting me, and I needed that at that point.
I knew you did, because like that was a point where it was just the recovery was so much harder for you because of what your specific case and everything that you had went through.
Yeah.
And I know that you weren't expecting it, you know, like you were expecting it to be hard, I think, but I don't think you were expecting it to be as difficult as it was, and having to get re-intubated multiple times, and it was just killing me not being able to be there. And I'm like, you know, I think she just needs to know that she has people there for her cheering her on. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm just going to reach out to as many CFers as I know, or I want to get to know, or whatever, and see who actually wants to be a part of this.
And that was cool because we used social media, our relationships through that, in order to show support, and it helped me so much. I was in tears.
So
and I like that someone showed it to you before I even sent it to you. Like,
I know. It was, because I was on my phone and I saw a notification.
You guys talking about the TIF got lungs video, right? Just so So,
to clarify.
Yes, I'll add a link to that in the podcast right now, so people know what we're talking about.
Get some tissues.
Get some tissues.
And I had one of my good friends with CF. She actually helped me make it, because I was reaching out to so many people, and she's like, you know, I'm really good at making videos, so if you want to send me
making videos, why isn't she an intern for our podcast? You think I have any idea what I'm doing here? I'm just
You do a good job.
No, she's so good at this kind of stuff. So she helped me a lot with all of that. And you know, it was cool how the CF community helped me while Tiff was going through that too, because I didn't realize how emotional I was going to be during that process, and it was nothing compared to what Tiff had to go through, you know, but it gave me an interesting perspective of what it's like to be kind of like the people in our support system. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, like, you know, it's a very weird moment, or a very weird feeling, to not being the person who's in the hospital bed, right? Like, you wanna take the burden on yourself, but there are times when other people, you know, need support as well. And I think having, you know, friendships with other people who have CF, that gives you the, I don't want to say the opportunity to be on both sides of the, you know, the aisle here, but it definitely shows you that you are capable of doing that as well.
Made me realize I prefer to be the one going through it.
Oh, definitely.
You know,
I hate seeing my friends.
I handle
being
it
sick.
a lot better.
You know, I hate. I am so much better when I'm in. When I'm the one that's not feeling well. If one of my friends is not feeling well, or family member or whatever, if that person's the one that's like sick and down for the count, you know, that is very heartbreaking for me, because I know at least how to go through it.
Right, we can handle it. We know we can handle it.
We do.
Which is a weird thing. It's a really horrible thing, but
it is a weird thing.
But it's definitely a weird experience, and I think what, you know, certainly needs to be talked about here is that when you do make friendships with people who have CF, you know, over the years you do lose people, right? You know, I've definitely connected with people with CF over the years, and it really started for me when I was probably, I think I was a junior in high school, and ESPN did their like a story on me playing football, and right after that I got like 1,000 friend requests, and
You're so popular. It's so popular.
Yeah, like just like you saying you're a good match on Tinder. You know, I got all these friend requests because, you know, I guess people with CF just wanted to reach out to me, and they realized that I was their age, stuff like that. And back then, I was like, all right, cool, I'll accept all these people that I just had no idea were even out there. And from like some of the friendships and relationships that I started to create from a junior in high school, you know, I don't think I ever realized, you know, what the severity of CF was at that point in time, right? As I went on and I got older, I started to see the people that I connect with at that point started to get very, very sick, and I started to see people get transplants, and I started to see people, you know, ultimately pass away, unfortunately. And it's been a very eye-opening experience for me, because you really are losing people in your life at a far more rapid pace than anyone else that you know without CF, for the most part at least. You are putting yourself out there with people who are going through a really hard time, and some people just ultimately do lose the battle eventually. And you see that, and it's, it's very, I will say it doesn't get any easier ever, right? Like it never gets any easier to see that happen.
And I think that a lot of the relationships that we build with other people that have CF and those friendships, sometimes they're stronger than the friendships that we have in real life, because these people are going through the same things as us, and we can emotionally connect with them on a deeper level. And when you're rapidly losing a lot of people to CF, it can be emotionally tolling on you as a person.
Yeah, definitely. Because
I know over the past couple of weeks, I've been having a hard time with it.
Me too.
And it's not even necessarily people that I've been super close with that have passed away, but there's been a good amount of people that have. And, I've known them on some type of level, and it's very eye-opening.
I think it's really hard, like, not to put yourself in that kind of situation. You're sort of like, oh my God, like I could be going through that myself as well. And then, you sort of have to come to grips with that in some weird way, which is why I think, talking it out with other people who have CF is such an important thing. But I also think that the emotional health side of CF is becoming more and more important, because people are not only dealing with their own illness, a lot of time people are also dealing with, the illness of their friends and seeing their friends getting very, very sick, which I wouldn't trade any of it for the world, but at the same time, it definitely takes an emotional tax on yourself as well.
It does. I find myself in tears sometimes reading things on social media about what people are going through. And on some level, you understand what they're going through, and then you just get it in your emotions, and you can't handle it. You just have to let it out, and it's difficult.
And I think, like, in all of our positions, at least, like, we're kind of out there on social media. We get a lot of questions from people in our inboxes and through, different sources like email and stuff like that. And you have so many people trusting you with so much important information about themselves and really opening up, and you become close with them. And sometimes just the amount of messages that you get and trying to help as many people as you can, I mean, that can be emotionally draining too, because you're trying to keep yourself healthy, you're trying to help them, and it can be a lot,
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is. And I was actually talking about this with my dad, probably a week or two ago, and we were talking about it, and I was saying how, a lot of people was here reach out to me and stuff like that, and they love telling me about their lives, which is, I love hearing it. And he was like, and he said something to the effect of like, yeah, you know why? It's because your story, Gunnar, is out there. It's been out there for however many years since you were in Sports Illustrated. Other people want to have their voices heard too. And I do think that's one thing that, we do have the ability to do in the positions that we are in as, I guess social media advocates or whatever. We can put other people's stories out there, and that's a main part of our mission at BEF, is giving a voice to every single person with cystic fibrosis in the community. Whether or not I personally agree with their voice or, some of the ways they may live their lifestyles, they do have the opportunity to have their voice heard, and they should absolutely put it out there. And that's why I do love hearing from people with CF all the time. And, some people have it out for me for whatever reason. It's okay. And other people, love to, just talk about, they love to just shoot the shit with me. It's like, they love to just talk about, just things that are in CF either related or not.
Right.
And that's basically where the friendships are born, right?
Yeah,
it is. It's actually really cool. Yeah. I mean, you can have someone that you've never even spoken to, and then they can reach out to you about, I don't know, like me with my lung bleeds and all my hemoptysis, get a lot of messages about that. They can reach out to you about something like that, and you can try to help them, and then you end up becoming really good friends from it.
Yeah, with transplant, I got a whole bunch.
I can't even.
Oh yeah. So you're looking at an entirely different world, Tiffany, because you have like an entirely different disease that you're dealing with now.
Yeah, exactly. So just having people tell me their stories. Oh, I'm 2 years out. Oh, I'm 5 years out. Oh, I just got it done a month ago. It helps to talk to them and get their story, and then you can share experiences. And
it's also very inspiring.
Bond. Yeah, exactly.
And I think you can learn a lot from each other too. It's cool to have these people reach out to you, and you try to help them, but then they end up helping you in the long run too, because they can teach you something new that you might have not known about.
Oh, totally.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I
think that's a cool thing with the relationships.
I definitely agree there. And I think sort of to wrap this podcast up, the bottom line here is that there are people out there going through the same thing that you're going through, in one way or another. It's very similar. And, CF, we always say that CF is a very different disease for everyone, which it is. But the bread and butter of it is very similar, right? You're dealing with respiratory issues. You either can't breathe or you can. It's like there's no gray area there, right?
No,
you can either take the deep breath or you can't, right? Or like you're either sitting on the toilet for 30 minutes trying to squeeze it out, or you're not, And it comes down to those enzymes, right? So everyone with CF understands what you're talking about, and those are the people that really get the struggle.
Right.
And I think developing these relationships ultimately in the end just shows you that you aren't alone, dealing with this disease.
You definitely aren't. There's so many people out there that can help you,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to wrap up today's podcast. Thanks for listening. If you want to continue to listen to us, remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. If you do, like, share, review. Very, very important. We're going to have a giveaway coming up, all right? So make sure you can continue to listen to us about that. But it's important to be following us, subscribing to us if you want to be involved in that. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also... And if you want to get in touch with us, that's what we've been talking about today, you can. Twitter's the best way. Through our Facebook pages, you can do that. Instagram, obviously the Salty Sisters are huge on Instagram. They're the Instagram famous part of this whole thing. So why don't you tell them how to do that?
Okay, you can follow us at Salty Sisters, and we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can email us at saltysisters@gmail.com, and CYSTERS for sisters.
A very punny way of spelling sisters. And then if you want to get in touch with me, it's Gunnar's blog at Esiason.org. I spell my name Gunnar. So it's Gunnar's blog at Esiason.org. And I think that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks.
Bye.